Hello everyone and welcome back to Eat Sleep Brief. In this week's episode we're going to be showing you how I frag montipora coral. Notice how I said not the right way to frag them. Pretty much this was just my way, logical thinking. This is kind of what I came up with, and I thought it'd be pretty cool to show you guys exactly how I went about doing this. So I decided to pull out the camera, record it, and hopefully you guys get some useful information. So before we start, I do want to let you guys know that montipora, there is different species as far as the thickness of the calcification of it, or the skeleton is what I should be calling it. There are variations. Some of them are like potato chips. They're very easy to break off. Some of them are quite a bit thicker. And just, kind of pay attention to that. Know what you're fragging. But other than that, you're going to see it's probably one of the easiest corals to frag. I would say by far the easiest. It's just literally pull off a chunk wherever you're happy, and it's pretty much that straightforward. So starting out with the grafted monty. Now this is the one I've started growing out here. You can see off the cliff by the zoas. A really cool thing that I've gotten on this one is actually some zoa growth on the bottom near the base of it for you guys looking. So this is kind of located here on my zoa garden. It's an overhang, and it's really taken off. If you pay close attention, it's actually butting up to the monty above it, and they're kind of just ramming into each other. So the logical way of doing this was to pretty much break off the chunk. Very quickly I realized it was not going to go as planned. As you're going to be seeing here, I pretty much ended up releasing the whole frag plug. You can't see the frag plug obviously anymore, but the whole plug just pretty much came apart. So it actually made it a little bit easier because I got to frag it outside of the water. But you guys can see the growth I've gotten on this thing is absolutely amazing since I have had it. But yeah, so what I had to do was just remove the whole thing, set it down on the sand bed, and I decided to move on to the monty right above it, which again, this is where there wasn't, pretty much coral warfare. They were just kind of running into each other. With breaking off this piece on the top, one thing that became very apparent is this piece was a lot thicker. I would say 2 to 3 times thicker, and it was very well held onto the rock. If you notice, just by moving it, the whole rock structure was moving, so it was very well on the rock. One thing with monties, when you are fragging it, you kind of don't know how it's going to break. Luckily, this one here took a little bit of elbow grease, nothing too crazy. But I did end up breaking a piece. It was, to be honest with you, it was a little bit bigger than I wanted to. You can see it here in my hand, but it broke off very clean. This here will, to grow this back, you guys are probably saying, "Oh crap, you just ruined it." Believe it or not, in my tank, the way it is, within 4 to 5 months, this growth will be back and actually bigger than the original one. So the first plan was to remove the section I just removed because it was just shading everything under it. The next part was to remove a little bit on the right side where you can see it's running into the SPS I have there. And again, this will give me at least 5-6 months where down the road I don't need to take care of it. Not to mention, guys, if you're like me, I love fragging stuff to get some money. I think I paid for, I don't know what cost it helped cover as far as the cost for the calcium reactor. So it's a good thing about having different corals. When you do frag them, make a little bit of money. So the grafted montipora you're seeing here, this one I wasn't able to really get too much on video. This one is very simple. I removed it and actually used some bone cutters. Believe it or not, bone cutters I found to be the best bet to cut these. It's a little bit better than the hand technique you just saw me use. I don't know why, but if you do have some bone cutters, try and use those first. Not to mention, if I would have used those at the beginning, I wouldn't have had the issue with the grafted pretty much coming off the way it did. So something I learned, hopefully something you learned from now on. I'm going to try bone cutters first, then do the hand method. Once you do have your pieces cut, what I did, I put them in a little container here, got them there. It's obviously easier to work on here than trying to do it by the tank. So you want to get a frag plug. Obviously you don't have to do it on a frag plug, but the good thing is once a colony does grow out, if you do it on a frag plug, you can actually remove the whole thing, like you saw me remove the grafted. The whole thing kind of just grew around the plug, and it was just a lot easier to relocate if I ever did want to. Now with the frag plugs, I'm using here the polyblab glue. This is very straightforward. Pretty much put a good, and I mean good, amount of glue on the plug itself, because a Monty isn't perfectly flat, so you may need the glue to fill in some areas. After that, it's very simple. You put the piece that obviously you're gluing on the plug in any way you kind of like it. Once it's there, you want to put it in the water so the glue can really get activated, and give it a few, I would say leave it in there for about, I don't know, maybe 2-3 minutes. What I would do once 2 to 3 minutes pass, I will come back, and I only do this to Monties. If you notice what I'm doing here, I'm reinforcing the bottom piece around the plug. I've noticed, not always you'll get the best glue joint. By doing this, you allow it to be a lot more sturdy. Worst case scenario down the road, if you don't like the little, I don't even know what to call it, the little plug or the stick piece of the frag plug sticking out, get some bone cutters, cut that off so it's nice and flush, it's easier to mount. And again, if you ever need to relocate that Monty or just pretty much get rid of it, sell it, it's a lot easier to do that way. So with the second piece we're going to be gluing, we're actually going to be having a little bit of fun with this one. I don't know if you guys have seen at LFS's some montiporas that have various layers in them. Now, given naturally this can happen on its own, but you can actually accelerate this process, and you're probably wondering, well, how the hell can you do that? The way to do it is to break off smaller chunks of the Monty and glue it under the current piece you're gluing, if that makes sense. So you would glue your first piece like we did, like I just showed you. Then you break off 2-3 smaller frags and you glue those under the main one. Now don't glue it completely under, obviously it's going to need light, but just have it be like a little ledge. And what that's going to do, it's going to speed up, or not speed up, but it's going to allow you to get that multi-level growth a lot sooner. Not to mention, if you want to get really creative, you can actually put different color Monties together to eventually create a grafted of your very own. So that's just a little quick tip for you guys. It's a little project you can do at home. You can actually have a lot of fun with it. So now that we're done fragging, believe it or not, the hardest part was to get this grafted back on there. Yeah, I tried. The best way to do it was actually to prop it up. I used, what did I use? I think I used a glass cleaner, kind of put it under it, and was able to get it to hold it till the glue dried. It wasn't the strongest joint. If I try to get it off again, it probably will fall off. The good news is, obviously, we were able to get it on. But if I really wanted to, if I had probably a buyer, I'd be willing to sell this whole grafted piece for someone that does have an established tank, because the way this one is grown is you can see that multi-layer that we were talking about. I think the growth here has taken about a year, so it hasn't been too long. No, but the growth really has been amazing, to what I have seen. Now, I don't know if you guys caught, but when you are dealing with corals, guys, always remember, put on gloves, not only for your safety, but also the safety of your corals. Last thing you want to do is have an oil or have a chemical under your fingernail, on your hand. You put it in your water column, and you probably won't kill anything, but you will stress out the corals. Obviously, eventually the bacteria and the carbon will break it down, or export it through the skimmer. But like I said, for your safety and for the safety of your corals, try to wear gloves all the time. Not only when I'm fragging, anytime my hands going in the tank, you better believe there's gloves. So this is kind of the final look here of the tank. Like I said, you can't really tell on the grafted one. The grafted one, what I really removed was the front portion that was rubbing against the glass. It was just making it where I couldn't clean the glass anymore, so it was bugging me. And the one just right above it, you can see that the two obviously noticeable pieces I've cut. Isn't it be pretty cool to come back to this video in about 2 to 3 months and see the growth? I think actually, you know what, we should do that. Probably we'll have a future video to see how much it's actually grown, and we'll use this video here as a kind of throwback comparison, just to see how quickly this Monty can recover. So guys, I think that's going to be it for today's video. I hope I didn't make it too boring. I think it was going to be very interesting. I think a lot of you wanted to see how to frag a different species of coral. And as you guys saw, it's very straightforward. Honestly, if you don't have any tools, you can just break them off with your hand. You don't really need frag plugs. You can just glue it directly on a rock. But just remember, if you ever do need to move it, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. If you see the grafted one was actually very easy if I wanted to relocate it versus the one that I grew right above it on the rock. That one's kind of just there to stay. If I wanted to get it off, it would break off in sections and would be so easy. So that's going to be it. Again, I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys got some useful information. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down in the comment box below. We actually just surpassed, guys, 10,000 followers. I want to thank each and every single one of you so much for that. And thank you guys for the ones that stayed till the very end. Leave me a comment down below letting me know I stayed till the end. I'd love to see you hardcore guys out there. And also let me know how you guys frag your Monties. You know, did I do it right? Did I do it wrong? Is there a better way of doing it? Share down below. I think we're all going to learn from it. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. Happy reefing.